Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program will begin in 2 minutes. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vox Media President Marty Moe.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of Code Commerce. Could this be in a more amazing space to do this? It's kind of mind-blowing. You have to kind of focus your eyes here and on the chairs and the people talking because there's a lot going on out there, I know. I know many of you are fresh from your on-location experiences and hope you really got something from that and enjoyed spending time with some of the world's most interesting retailers. We have a totally jam-packed half-day session for you today. Before we get on with that, I do want to send another special thank you to all of our great partners from Criteo, eBay, mParticles, ShopTalk, Persado, Shopify, SimilarWeb, Steelcase, and Hudson Yards. And a special thank you to Hudson Yards for allowing us to occupy this amazing space today for this afternoon's program. I don't want to take any more time, so let's get on with the show and welcome Kara Swisher and Johana Bhuiyan.
Thank you. Oh, well, hi. This is odd. I have to tell you, this is fantastic.
I've always wanted to walk up on stage with a picture of my head on a huge screen.
Okay, well, here you
Kara
are. Now
Swisher, making dreams come true.
All right, bucket list. All right, so we're here today. It's a little bit, wow. We're starting off. I hope you guys had a great morning and you saw some really fantastic stuff. That was interesting. We're trying to do different things, and just let us know what you think of that, because we're trying to not just have interviews and things like that, but give people experiential things and different things at our code events. But today we're going to kick off with an interview. Johana covers a little company called Uber. You might have read about it in the news lately.
Yep, it's consumed all of my 2017, a little bit of my soul.
Yeah, and so we wanted to bring someone who we actually asked her a lot of the troubles going on at Uber, which have been ongoing. And because she's such a terrific sport about it, she has agreed to come, and you may have read about her in the New York Times several times. They have an unhealthy obsession with her. Johana?
Oh, so welcoming on stage right now is the Chief Brand Officer of Uber, Bozoma Saint John.
Should I dance on?
You're dancing.
Yeah, please.
Should I? No?
No,
I can do
well,
that.
she promised us a body roll on stage.
I was trying to teach her how to body roll. She won't do it.
Yeah, well,
that's probably
at
not-
the same time, I'm a lesbian, but I'm not Ellen.
Thanks for joining us.
I'm real not nice like Ellen. She's real
love
nice.
her.
We might not need to do that for Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do body
all
rolls
right,
later.
so let's get started. Johana, why
Yes.
don't you start off?
Yeah, so Uber announced that you were hired in June, correct?
Yes.
And so but you didn't start until a few weeks after that.
No, I started right away.
Okay.
Actually, yeah.
And so now you've gotten time. I assume you've had your orientation. You
Yes.
know where the former war room, now peace
Yes,
room is.
now the peace room.
Yeah.
I have my badge.
Yeah, good.
I have all
Getting
the
out of the
credentials.
buildings. Yeah. So I mean, now that you've gotten settled, what is it that you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Well, so I think usually in any transition, you want to take a little bit of time between the last job and the new job, get your head straight. Think about what you want to do in the future. And I didn't have time for that. In this one, and to the question, it was like we announced that I was joining, and then almost immediately it was like, okay, I got to get to work. And work for me is a number of things. It's understanding sort of the landscape, of what is happening. So whether in the press or in culture or, developments in the app and in the product, and then figuring out how to actually tell that story. What are all the channels that are available to us? And so figuring out what are the important stories to tell, what channels are the best ones to tell them in, who are we actually talking to, because that's as important as anything else. And that requires a whole host of things, whether it's about research, to understand what the actual challenges are, whether in the product itself or with perception, et cetera, et cetera. And then again, figuring out, well, what are the right messages and the ways to tell them, so creating the creative narrative.
So that would be difficult in normal circumstances.
Yes.
When you arrived, you were hired by a CEO who was then ousted by shareholders.
Yeah.
There's been revelations aplenty, one
Yes.
after the next, including on Recode and New York Times and other things. There's a lawsuit. There's a shareholder fight between the shareholder and the founder. You've gotten there was a CEO search that went on as if it was The Bachelor. You've got a lot of challenges.
Yes, everything was bright.
Yes.
In the spotlight.
Let's start with the first one. You were hired by someone who was fired.
Right.
And for different reasons at the time. So how do you report now to who? Francis?
Yes, Francis Fry. Yep.
Okay. So what, explain how that transition was, because this is not a normal circumstance by any stretch.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, I mean, I've said this before, which is that I felt like I knew enough of what I needed to know. I asked a lot of questions before I took the job. I asked some difficult ones, you know, of Travis himself, and
Such as?
I got, well, a lot of things like, what is coming?
Right.
What else is there, you know? Because I wanted to know as much as I could before coming in. Like if it was going to be not just about the work, but for me, you know, because I think sometimes we forget that it's not just about the work, you know, it's about me being in the space. You know, I want to be in a healthy environment. You know, the job is tough enough, and if I'm not in a healthy environment, I can't produce, quite simply.
Did you have a problem with what went on before and what has been revealed?
Yeah.
Tell me about that problem. What was your problem with it?
Well, I think there are so many problems in so many places. I don't believe that there is yet a utopia, you know, for a person like me in an environment like this. And I've said before also that I feel like just being is also part of the solution, that if there are more people like me, then the environment will also change. But I wanted to make sure that any of the issues, any of the claims, the things that were happening, you know, this very aggressive culture or, you know, sexual harassment or any of the things that had been talked about, was that a present thing? You know, were they things that were happening on a daily basis? You know, it's like, do you walk down the hallways and do I feel afraid? You know, do I sit in an office and feel like my colleagues are looking at me in a way that won't allow me to align ideas, or that my, you know, efforts are not going to be appreciated? And what I found was very different, you know, because I did go to the office, I did talk to people, I walked around, I wanted to know, it wasn't just his perspective, I wanted to know a lot of people's perspectives. And what I found was really encouraging to me, and I felt like I could do it.
But what was their pitch to you? What was their charge? When I first spoke to you when you joined, you said you knew it was going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Why is this a challenge that you felt like it was worth taking on?
Oh, man, it's multi-layered really for me. You know, some of it is the professional and some of it is the personal. On the professional front, I mean, there are just so few times I feel like for a marketer, you know, a brand person who can come into a situation and literally put your stamp on something and say, okay, I did that thing, right? It's not a campaign. It's not, you know, because we produce campaigns all the time.
It used to say it was a campaign.
It used to be, but it's not. It's not. You know, it's not that. It's about the total structure, you know, of a brand, and it's so complicated, you know. And so to be able to do that, or have the opportunity to do that, is a big one for me in my career, right? And for what I do as a marketer. Personally, I get a little bit emotional when I talk about this, because I feel it to my heart, which is that, you know, I don't want to run, you know, from any situation. I don't want to feel like I don't belong someplace. You know, I think it's unfair. You know, and so for me, if I can go into a situation like this, which has been sort of the tip of the spear for what is wrong, and we can fix that thing, I know for sure, like, everything else will be all right. You know, I just want to hold up the mirror and say, okay, if this place can do it, then so can every place else.
Right.
And so I want to feel that. You know, I don't want to be in any other situation where I feel like I can't produce or I can't be my whole self because there are prejudices or uncomfortable situations because of who I am.
All right, so I'm sorry if I'm paraphrasing correctly.
Yeah.
It's like, if I can take this disaster area and make it look pretty, or make it look good, or get back to a healthy place. Presumably that's the goal.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, like how you do that. I think there's probably not been a bigger brand challenge. And maybe you have research that shows nobody cares. It could be a Trump situation, nobody cares, like no matter what you all do there over at Uber. I care. I think a lot of people in Silicon Valley care.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the brand challenge. I mean, I was trying to think, how do you get, like, I stopped using Uber. I did, for lots of reasons.
I still use it.
She uses it. I'm using it again because of Dara, because I want to give him a chance. But I did. It was definitely a consumer choice. I was like, enough of these, and the stuff I learned, I was like, no, I'm not giving money to these people. So what is the immediate brand challenge? Because, I mean, you can't really sell now with 100% less sexual harassment. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you know what? I don't think you should, like, be our copywriter.
No, I know, exactly.
Yeah. I don't think it would work out. Right.
No more regulatory lying.
Right.
You know, we promise.
You're definitely not getting the job. Like, just so we're clear. It's not happening for you.
Promise not to physically attack you in cars. So what do you do with this brand? You've got the lawsuit, you've got the report, the Holder report, you've got this, you've got that. Where do you begin as a marketer?
Yeah.
Like you can't be shiny happy, right?
No, you can't be shiny happy. I think it's a combination of things. You know, I think like any product or any brand, it's multifaceted. You know, it's very complicated. Storytelling is very complicated, right? It's like you've got to show some of the inspiring things. You've got to show some of the things that you're sorry about, that you're fixing. You've got to show some of the things that are funny and light. You know, it's a complication of things that you've got to present so that it doesn't feel so one-dimensional, because it's not. Nothing ever is.
Right.
You know, and so to me, I look at this and I'm like, okay, well, yes, there are a lot of things that have happened. We've got to, you know, address those things and make sure that people understand that, like, no, nobody's okay with this, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you have people who are inside of the company, 16,000 people who work there. You've got millions of drivers. You've got all kinds of people who are interacting, and there's so many stories to tell. I simply want to show that.
Okay.
You know, I think that's the first thing, which is that I want to show the diversity of the story. That it's not just one thing, it's not one-sided. Yes, of course, those things are terrible and we're working to fix it, but there are other things that are also happening, and how can we talk about the whole picture?
So how do you start with the I'm sorry part? Because I would assume that's the first move.
Yeah, well, I think there's a number of ways to do that. First of all, you know, I think at this point, to your point earlier about, you know, you can't really just come out and say, okay, you know what, we're gonna do this and do that and do that. You have to show it, you know, and that takes some time. It really does. It's like there are lots of initiatives right now to get, you know, the culture sorted so that we don't run into some of the issues that we've had before. I have great colleagues, you know, in the HR teams and the culture teams who are helping to do that. And I trust that they're doing their jobs well so that I can be.
How do you message that? How do you?
Oh, well, I mean, you know, it's difficult to do it straight on. It really is. I don't think that you can in an ad. You know, there's right. Like you just tried to copyright that. You can't do that.
Brilliant.
No, it's not brilliant. I think you're a brilliant person, but that was not brilliant.
All right, good for me. But what would you do? How do you communicate that?
Well, I think there's a number of ways. I mean, so it would never be in necessarily a campaign, right? But I think you need to have people talk about it. So it is in situations like this. It is in having you know, some of our leadership talk about it in public spaces. And that's the way that you get to it. So it's more of a communication challenge than it is an advertising challenge, at least for that part of it.
But you talk generally about, you know, the story that you're trying to tell, that Uber is sort of this diverse entity, not, you know, this single-faceted thing that in everything that you've heard in the press is the only thing that Uber is.
Yeah.
And I obviously agree with that because, you know, any company is that way as well. But specifically, what is Uber's brand today, and what are you trying to make it, and how are you going to do that?
Yeah. Well, I think the brand today, aside from, you know, some of the other challenges, is that it's a utility. You know, a really efficient, good, strong utility, something that you can, you know, launch to get you from here to there. And it needs to be more than that. You know, there needs to be love there. There needs to be some emotion that is connected to the user and to the product, right? Mm-hmm. And that's literally what I'm trying to get to, right? So right now the company has done a great job of getting the growth and getting the product in the world and making sure that people can use it, that it's reliable, all of those things. But now it's about love. You know, it's like we've got to get people to be in love with the product and therefore use it before, like think about it before you even use it.
So when you talk about utility, Facebook talked about itself as a utility for a long time.
Yeah.
And I just did an interview with Scott Galloway, and he was talking about how each brand represents something. Apple represents sex. Facebook represents love.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did.
This is fascinating.
It was interesting. So I think Google represented usefulness, Amazon represented sustenance, you know, like the main things you want. Yeah. What is Uber, right now, when you're doing lots of research, presumably?
Yes.
Because utility is not, like, I love my electric company is not really a thing, right? So what do you imagine, how can you get people to love Uber? Because it feels very bad boyfriend, like I'm not going back to him kind of thing. So how do you get people to love Uber? And this is all the other stuff, because it was so aggressive and it had that image.
I mean, I think quite literally, it is about movement. Mm-hmm. You know, so I'm sort of flying off the cuff here. I feel like it is about movement. And so to me, if I think about it more emotionally, it is a movement also of like feeling and like, you know, of upward mobility and of opportunity and those types of things. So when I think about it, it's something more emotional underneath the utility of like moving from here to there. That it can be that, but it's also about the opportunity that you see at hand, and the opportunity for other people to be, to have a platform to also improve their lives and, create their own businesses.
What is the research showing now?
About?
You've done research on
Yes.
what people think. What do people right now?
Yeah.
What is the polling on Uber?
Well, it's a very complicated, group of thoughts that I'm still trying to synthesize. But from the outset, there are a number of things. People really love the product itself.
Right.
That is clear. The people love it, they want to use it, they rely on it, and it's growing. So that's one. People don't necessarily feel attached to it. So for me, that comes into the emotion of it. So if you describe, if you describe other brands and ask what people are thinking about those brands, they often associate feeling with those brands. They don't associate they don't say, oh, Nike sneakers, it's something greater than that. It's about like feeling inspired to be greater. Even if you're sitting on your couch,
How do you get that across when the only interaction you have with this brand is through its app?
Well, that's through the storytelling. So to me, again, it's like, let's just work on the movement thing for a second. If I'm talking about movement, I'm talking about the movement of people and of emotion, of like, upward mobility, then I want to tell those stories. I want people to see drivers who have, changed their lives because of this opportunity, right? Or that when you get in a car and it's very intimate space, you and one other person, or you're in a pool and you're with a few other people, what is that moment? Maybe you're in a particular situation, you're sitting in this moment with some other strangers, and something happens there,
I don't take pool.
What'd you say?
I don't take pool.
Oh, you don't? Why?
Yeah. I
She
hate
also doesn't take
people.
Uber.
Oh, you hate people. That's
hate people.
fantastic.
Please
Okay.
don't talk to me. Drive me to the place. Let me get out.
Okay, well, all right. But there's a story there too, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think that's what's so interesting to me. So many dynamics, it's like when people get in a car and, for instance, I'm gonna drive soon. So,
What?
what was that?
You're going to drive?
Yeah, I'm gonna drive an Uber soon, in these.
Okay. all
Maybe
right.
they'll be studded or
Yeah.
something, you know what I mean?
Right, okay.
But I'm going to drive because I think one of the most interesting things, I love it when I get, into the Uber and, it's like if I have a sweater on or something, I take it off and then the driver turns on the air. It's like non-communication. Like he's already seen that something has happened, right? Or the opposite. Or, there are like these little cues that happen. And I just wonder, like that must be really difficult. To like, okay, somebody gets in the car, they have some energy about them. Maybe they're sad or they're mad or in their rush or whatever the thing is, right? And you're in this small space. And I've got to concentrate on the path to get to the place that I need to go to. And I've got to watch out to make sure that they're all right in the car. Warm, cold, like they want music, they not want me to speak to them. They want to have a conversation. There's so many things to think about. And I think it's a really fascinating moment to think about all of those small pieces that perhaps we don't spend enough time thinking about.
It's interesting that you said that Uber's brand right now is that it's a utility. The messaging around is that. But for the first time, I think this year, we saw that brand actually made an impact on its business in the ride-hail industry, because typically consumers base their decisions on what ride-hail company they're going to use on price, convenience, efficiency, and then brand is kind of the fourth or fifth consideration.
Yeah.
But then we saw the first Delete Uber campaign where Uber had built such little goodwill around its name that even though it didn't do anything wrong at that point, Lyft was still operating during the taxi driver protest, and they didn't get any of the vitriol as a result of it. Even though they didn't do anything, people were very quick to rally against them. I mean, what would you, I just want to get a better feeling of what the process is for reacting to something like that for someone in your role. What would you have done during that first Delete Uber campaign?
It's a really, if I could lie and say I've never thought of that, but I have. It keeps me up, because like, what if that happens again, or what would you do if that happens, right? And it's really, even though I want to answer it, it's very difficult to answer because I do drive from the gut. I really do. I think, you start to make mistakes when you just do the math. and start to look at research and say, okay, well, this demographic thinks this and that demographic thinks that. It's too robotic, that's why we're human. It's like sometimes we think, yes, it's a utility and it's, tech, but at the end of the day, it's really human. It's human to human. Right. And so for me, I want to think about the ways that people, like what is happening at the time, and what are people thinking about? Like what's driving them?
Everyone believed Uber did it. They immediately went to the brand. Of course, this brand would screw immigrants.
Right.
I've never been put in a position where I've actually had to defend Uber to people that I was talking to. Right. I was trying to convince people, explain them what actually happened, and nobody could be convinced of it.
Right. But I think sometimes sometimes it can be as simple as a statement, and I think in recent days there have been statements that Uber has made in support of many things that I think as a country and as a society we don't want to stand for. It's like Charlottesville, made a statement like that. That's important. It's important for people to understand how you feel. It's really important. I don't think I can underline that enough.
But more specifically, that let's say it happens, people start deleting their accounts. What is the first thing you do?
You have to make a statement. You have to say something, which is to align your position. To be clear about where it is that you lie, what side you stand on. I really do think that in this day and age, and to your question before about brands becoming, or in this case, it's like it was a utility or people are using their ride share for value or whatever else, and then now it's like, okay, brands are really important. I think that's becoming faster. I think any new thing that comes, it used to be like, okay, the competition is about whether or not, there's, if it's beverages, it's like, okay, calorie counts and, recharging and all those things. And then very quickly things become parity, and then you have to use other things to distinguish between the brands, and that's where we are now.
So I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the issue of gender in Silicon Valley and diversity.
Yeah.
It's a big topic. Obviously, Uber's been at the center of it. Now we have SoFi. We've got all the venture capitalists. Yeah. You were hired. You were brought in via Ariana. Is that correct?
Yes.
Through Ariana Huffington. You've got Leanne Hornsey there. You've got Frances, Jill. It sometimes feels like they brought in the women to clean up the mess the men make. That's what it feels like, and it's kind of horrible in that way. Yeah. That they can't control themselves, and you all have to come in. Do you feel? I mean, you've discussed this issue of tokenism, of both being a woman, being an African American. What do you? How do you look at that? Because you're saying I have to be here to show the differently, but you shouldn't have to be a symbol at the same time. You're a working person.
Yeah.
That it isn't. It's not an identity thing.
Yeah.
It's necessarily. So how do you look at that? Because it feels a little like that. Let's get ourselves a lady to clean this place up, or
a lady cleaner.
Is that lady cleaner? Right. Yeah. Exactly. So how do you look at that? What's happening now?
Well, I wish I could be more
You're from
ideal.
LA, where it's a very different.
Yeah, but not really. Yeah. I mean, it's like I'm still living in the world. Like I still face these things daily. It doesn't matter where I am.
Yeah.
And I think that's another point that I want to make, which is that this is not unique to Silicon Valley. This happens in the grocery store. Like this thing happens all the time, and it's not new to me. It's like I've been a black woman my entire life. People have questioned all the time.
Right.
Well, I mean, this is in case people didn't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's possible. It could have been something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is.
Take apart the woman first.
Take the woman part first?
Yeah, or can you not do
No,
that?
I can't.
Right.
I don't know how to.
So what do you look at when you see Silicon? But let's talk about Silicon Valley. Even though it's everywhere, it's real bad in Silicon Valley.
It is really
right
bad
now.
in Silicon Valley, and that's where I work.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel very much charged to take that on, and I wish I could be ideal and say, you know what, I should be seen, just for what I do and who I am, and forget the labels, but that's not possible today. And so I refuse to be angry about that. Really, I do. I don't carry it as a burden, because otherwise I can't do the work. I would just be the angry black woman, and I'm not. I'm really good at my job. I can do this job. It's not about me coming in as a black woman to clean up the mess. It's about me, Boz, having the talent and the ability to actually do this work. And that's what I want to. That's what I want to prove.
You were, a high-ranking Apple Music marketing executive. Yeah. You probably could have had your pick of the litter, but you chose to go to a company that was arguably at its lowest point as a result of diversity issues. And this is something that I consider all the time. Obviously it's much more prominent for black women, particularly in tech, because there's so few of you, and prominent black women at that. But when I think about taking jobs, when I think about moderating different panels, what I have to consider is, am I filling someone's quota? Was that at all a consideration for you, that this kind of feels like a public effort to fix their diversity issue when you were thinking about going to Uber?
No, I really don't think that way. And I can't think that way. Otherwise, I really would be angry all the time.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I choose not to think of it that way. And it's not that I'm sort of like Disney-fying it, you know, or making it sound like that doesn't matter. You know, but clearly I feel like I do have something to prove, you know? I always feel that way. Because, quite frankly, I know that people think that, or that people will assume that, and therefore it makes the bar that much higher for me. You know, that maybe if I was something else or someone else, that the bar wouldn't be so high, because I would be given the credit. It's like, oh yeah, of course he can do it. You know, but it's because I'm a black woman, it's like, oh, well, she was hired because she's a black woman and in a diversity, therefore I need to go that step higher to prove that, no, actually, I'm just good at this. You know, it's like the best person came in. That's what it was.
So what do you, as this person who's come in to fix this, what do you think the problem in Silicon Valley, we're going to finish with that and then we'll get to questions from the audience. How do you fix this problem, whoever it is fixing it? It seems...
I know, some magical, like, Wizard of Oz.
What do you have?
Is the problem perception?
Yeah,
you know,
it's
because
not
that's
just that.
what
It's like, it goes on, and like literally every day, I literally open up the thing, I go, for fuck's sake, like, are you kidding me?
Tara, this is live.
I know, texts about your genitals, what?
Oh,
like,
God.
You know, like, that was today, you're lucky some other company was behaving badly. But what do you imagine has to happen in, and then let's just talk about tech, because I know it's everywhere, but again,
there just has to be more. There has to be more of us.
Right.
There has to be more. Like, that is rule number one. Like, fix number one, there just has to be more.
Hire
I know,
more women,
yes, the numbers
color.
matter in this particular case. They really do. Again, there is no magical Wizard of Oz that is like going to fix this for us. You know, we just have to open the doors. There just needs to be more of us. And that is the step one. I'm like, I don't want to talk about anything else until we get more.
And how do you do that?
Well, I'm here, so
All right.
more of you come.
All right. I don't know how many of you there are, but go ahead, because you're unique.
Oh, there's a mic over there.
So I'm the father of a lacrosse player, a fraternity boy. You talk about Silicon Valley men. At 2:30 in the morning, or the next day when I get at 2:30 in the morning Uber confirmation, that represents comfort to me. Has Uber done any studies to determine the reduction in drunk driving accidents and deaths to understand that?
Yes.
That's a story.
It's really, it's incredible. I think there's, to the question about, you know, how do you address some of the things that perhaps are sort of tougher, you know, they're not the sexy stories, you know, and how do you get to that so that it feels like, okay, you know, we're not just doing this to put points on the board, but these are actually real facts and real numbers. Stories like that are really important to tell, you know, and I want to do that. So I want to do it from the perspective of, yes, like a parent who gets that notification and then breathes that sigh of relief, you know? It's like when I was a kid, my mom used to tell me I was in high school, grew up in Colorado, and, you know, I was making jokes earlier about the fact that I got my driver's license at 15 and a half, and I was there on I-25, like just, you know, with the lead foot, you know? And that when she heard the garage door open, she fell asleep, you know? And she said I would never understand that until I had kids, and I have an 8-year-old now, so I'm terrified, you know, for the next like 10 years. But my point is that I can understand that, you know, and I want to be able to tell that story. So yes, it is about the reduction of drunk driving incidents. It's about, you know, the safety of understanding that your kid has arrived at the place they were supposed to when you put them in the car or when they launched the app themselves. But tell it from the viewpoint of a parent. You know, come from the emotional point. It's not about the numbers. You know, it's not about the facts and the figures, even though at the end it really is. But the point is that you want to tell the story from a place of emotion.
Another question? Go right up here, sorry.
That's a great dress.
That's a great dress, sorry.
Sorry, I got so distracted. I'm like, I can't even think straight now.
We'll talk later.
Okay.
So I'm Jenny from List, and I have a 10-year-old daughter who saw the video of you speaking at the Apple Tech Conference, and she saw that and said, "Mom, this lady's so amazing. Maybe you can have your Uber account back," because I told her you were going there. And I wonder, how do you feel about being a role model, not just within the tech community and
Yeah.
executives, but like for young women, like seeing you and being like a total badass as you are, how do you feel
Sure.
about that? It's a lot
Right.
of responsibility.
Whew, Lord. I mean, yeah,
By
let
the
me
way,
just lay
your
down.
nickname is
Badass both.
Right,
Yes,
yeah.
because I am. But yeah, no, it's also complicated. Like on one hand, I'm so excited about it, right? Because I'm like, yes, you can see me, you know it's possible, it's fantastic, especially for young black girls. You know, I'm really, really, really proud to be in the spotlight to represent them. However, it is also terrifying, you know, because the pressure of it. And it's so funny. So first day of school for my daughter was a couple of weeks ago, right? And a lot of the parents were going to stay after, you know, after the sort of, you know, putting the desk together to help out in the classroom the rest of the day. I couldn't because I had to take a flight to go to a meeting I could not miss. And I was feeling really heavy about it, right? And she was like standing off in the corner and chatting with her little girlfriends. Can you imagine? So adorable. She's in 3rd grade. Anyway, so she's standing over there talking to them, and she was like halfway like bragging and boasting, you know, about what I do and the fact that I couldn't be there because I had to go do something, you know, something else. You know, and it was just like, it resounded for me how important it is to be visible, you know, and to do this in a really powerful and unapologetic way, you know, which is that's what I want to be, you know, and I want to be something that is worthy to be bragged about.
I do have one more question. Yeah, so
Any more questions from the audience?
I have one more
Or
question.
should we
while
just body roll?
No.
Oh, no body roll.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
So Chief Brand Officer is an interestingly specific role, and I say that as someone whose role is Senior Transportation Editor. I've never edited a word on Recode, thankfully for Recode. But tell me,
to make you feel better.
yeah,
all
thank
of
you, making my dreams come true, Kara. But yes, I mean, are you effectively the CMO? Why not take the CMO
Yeah.
role?
Or were you
offered
you were
that?
not offered. Is that
No,
correct?
there was a lot of conversation, you know,
I
about
know.
the titles, right? No, I like brand. I like brand because it represents a holistic picture. You know, marketing can be very mathematical sometimes. I think people forget that, you know, because I've had marketing jobs, by the way, my entire career.
Right.
Or brand marketing, which are sort of interchangeable also. But brand feels more creative to me. I feel like I have more license, you know, to be able to do things that perhaps cannot always go back to an ROI, or that cannot be added up. You know, there's a little bit of theater, some like, you know, magic that happens. And so that is more important to me at this very moment, especially for this brand.
Will you report to a CMO under Dara?
I don't know.
You don't
We're
know.
going to talk about that.
We're gonna talk about it. I have 2 more very quick questions before we go. Dara, what is your...
Yes. Oh my God. I'm so excited. You know,
Why?
because he is like forceful, you know, he is steady, he has a really strong point of view, and he has enough edge. You know, I love a little badassness in there, because I am too, in the right way.
When did you find out that he was going to be CEO?
Oh my God, I was at the VMAs. I was with my daughter at the VMAs, and she was like, you know, screaming my ear off, like I literally could not hear, you know? And then my phone started going nuts, and that's when the confirmation happened. Yeah.
Right. To you, who told you? What was...
Actually, I think I saw it on Twitter, actually.
Was it
me.
Kara's
Oh,
tweet?
it was you! Thank you, by the way.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
But you think he has enough edge? Because that was my worry, is that he's an
Yeah.
adult and a normal person and might not understand the toxicity level. That's what I told him anyway. I know.
Wow.
I know. I can't help
You
it.
are something else.
I know. What can I say? My last question for you: when you are, is Apple? You
Yes.
came from Apple.
Yes.
Are you going to buy the $1,000?
Oh my
iPhone?
God, what a question. Well, I
Why
mean, here's the thing. I love my gadgets. Like I have everything, you know?
Right.
And I am in love with the new technology, you know, like the Face ID and all these other things. And so I really, really want it. I'm gonna have to.
But what?
Well, I've got 2 of them. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And
Is $1,000
it's
too much?
$1,000. It's a lot of money.
I think you're wearing that on your feet.
I
Okay,
am.
But go ahead.
Don't worry about that. You
I'm
know what I
just
mean?
telling you.
Why are you in my closet?
No, but what do
you
you
know what I'm saying?
But you think the price point is makes even I'm even doing it too. I can.
Yeah, there's a little bit of sticker shock, but you know, I love the product so much. I feel like I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, you're gonna do it anyway. Yeah, me too. All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Badass Bose.
Thank you. Thanks, Cara. I appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Recode Editor-in-Chief Dan Fromer and Racked Senior Reporter Cheryl Wishover.
All right, well, speaking of brands, our next conversation will cover building the next generation of great brands and how to target